Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Sunday, December the 23rd, 2018, and David Pierce is visiting us. And I'm joined, of course, by Lisa Flamino Rush and BZ Rieger. Thanks. I'm so glad that you came to visit us.
Thank you for hosting. I'm on my way to my family's in North Carolina, so I stopped by to check out the CCC headquarters.
I know, fabulous, isn't it?
I'm picking out a picture here because before I do any of you guys, that joy. It's so funny that joy is such a prominent part of the image of you. Well, from this angle, it looks like YOU, and the U is not complete. Have you not ever noticed that?
I really, honestly, I didn't look at it like that. I never saw
actually, it. Speaking of pictures, David, the U wants to come through. I can see it right now.
Yeah. I can see it.
Never has been before. Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
You haven't ever noticed that?
Well,
no, I've noticed it before, but not like this. This looks like someone painted over.
Right. Yeah, I see it.
Part of the
oh my goodness, isn't that interesting? No, I had not thought about it quite like that.
Well, I think it was wasn't the last or maybe the third to last conversation we did about maybe you are now participating more in you, and so your you is coming up on the wall.
Right.
Well, that's a strong possibility because I am participating a whole lot more than I have been, so
you'll walk in one day and it'll be a you.
Like it's always been that way.
Of course, to everybody else, they'll think, "Oh my gosh, what is she talking about over there?"
That you guys can see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I can't believe that you've never seen it as a wow, almost you.
No, actually, I never have. I've never ever paid attention to that. That is so interesting.
It's all about perspective. Huh?
Yes, it is. Perspective.
Joy you.
Yep.
Right.
And you know that little character that I used all the time in Messenger and didn't know who she was. Her name was Joy from the Pixar movie Inside Out. I had no idea that little character's name was Joy until Lisa told me, and I had never seen the movie, and so of course we had to see it. And now I see that little character doll everywhere. Today I saw her all over the place.
Well, that's your reticulated activating system in your brain.
Ah, okay. Well, that was awesome. So BZ narrowed the field of what we were going to talk about tonight, and I think I chose, actually, because yeah. So we're talking about letting go of everything your linear mind clings to as the way things are. And because when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about, and you chose this one and another one, I was like, oh, this one. Because for the last several days, I was telling BZ, I haven't even looked at the IV in the last 24 hours. I've been kind of out of it. I mean, somebody said something about something going on somewhere, and I'm like, oh, really? I have not even been, and if you ask me what I've been doing, I don't think I can tell you because I don't really know.
That's all good signs.
Good
signs.
Yeah, it's definitely has felt like it's hard to keep up with the news cycle or the IUV cycle. Is like, trying to, or even watching some of you guys' shows. There's so much going on, and it's like every day there's more new.
Well, what's actually kind of a cool thing is that you, we were just talking about a little about this kind of off camera in a different way, but each of us have the ability to glean, obviously not the whole experience, just in the way if you read a whole something or watch a whole something, whatever it is, but you can glean it. So just the title and a image of something. So if you're going through the IV or any other blog or something like that, you can get a lot of stuff like that. In fact, the IV is set up so that if you go to the main blog page, in just looking at the titles and the images, and you scroll down, it's presenting a picture for you the way that you read in a multidimensional way as well.
Right.
So, and you can do that with all sorts of things, because that's one of the things that, you know, that goes right in the way things are. So we think we have to go and, you know, read something from beginning to end, or we can get, you'll find now that a lot of things you can get a good read on it and a good sense of it before you've even read it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a, you know, if it's a physical thing, you can put your hand on it. If it's on the computer, you can put your fingers on it. So you can pull a lot of the codes and frequencies from that in that. So we don't need to be doing things the way we think we need to be doing them in order to get the same kind of, or actually less than we can really do when we start to do it a new way, if that makes any sense.
Lisa, we can't hear you at all, hardly, honey.
Oh, is this better now?
If you speak up some more.
Yeah, stop whispering.
Oh, wow. Okay, how's this?
That's much better. Now we can actually hear you.
Okay, now what was I gonna say?
Yeah, you know, there's
It's happening to me. Okay, no, this
a
is
YouTube
good.
video or whatever, and you post one, or last time that I did something like that, and I guess it has an algorithm how it chooses what the thumbnail is. So I wonder if there's any, I'm sure there's some thought behind that, or probably some negative aspects about, you know, because, you know, when you're searching through the suggestion, or even the suggestions, you know, like how those are chosen, because some of the frequency videos will pop up and I'm like, oh, is this you know, and I'll listen to it and it'll be great. And then, you know, I'm like, well, did that slip through the negative algorithm, or did it actually, you know, so it's interesting how, like, and also a way that when you're talking about DJing or whatever, not so much anymore because it's all digital, but with records, that was the record album cover was, you know, how I had it in my head archived, right? You know, versus, you know, you just see the title on an MP3 screen or whatever. And I would, you know, if I had never heard it, I would definitely a major part of choosing whether to hear it or not would be based on the impression that I got from the album cover.
Well, yeah, because it's telling a story. It's all a metaphor.
Yeah.
You know?
Or even the titles of tracks or songs. You know, some of them like, well, how in the hell did they get, you know, that title? Or so anyway, it's kind of interesting because a lot of time, or, you know, maybe like a book cover or a book title of a book can make or break whether it's actually read or not. Or sometimes.
Yeah, well, there's one of those things that we think is the way things are. So when it comes to records or book sales or stuff like that, a lot of that is all orchestrated behind the scenes and has nothing to do with sales and this and that and the other thing, the way that it's right purported to be. One of the things I wanted to play with in this is, so there's a lot of things that we think of are the way things are, and now, so that's really helpful in making us think small, think in a box, 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 instead of, you know, not. So for a moment, you know, kind of what pops into your head of something, either something that you notice somebody else thinks is a certain way and you like, no, or that you is a common refrain for you that comes up when, you know, you're holding it a certain way and that's blocking you from doing X, Y, and Z, or thwarting you or slowing it down or somehow keeping it out?
Well, I know for myself, whenever I think about looking into something, okay, we were talking about scanning the IUV, right? And I've heard you speak on this before, BZ, allowing your hand to move the slider of the video to the place where you just feel to stop. Mm-hmm. My linear mind didn't like to hear you say that, specifically about a video, because how can I, at first, when you were first talking about that, how am I to glean everything that is said in the video or meant, because the inferences with language and how we all perceive things differently, if I don't listen to the entire thing? And I have tried the having my hand to go through, but I'm for me, I haven't gotten completely there yet. But I can tell immediately by doing things like that now, by looking for those patterns and feeling into how I feel when I do something. I can tell if I want to listen to a video all the way through or not.
After you click on the somewhere in the middle.
Right. Yes. If I get a feel for it, I might listen to the first few moments and then, oh, okay, that sounds like and let's see, go in a little farther. And it's, I don't know, it gives me a feel for it. And I don't like, if it's something that I'm researching and I really want to know, I will give it a little more time than but I've seen a pattern in myself in that my first thoughts turn out to be to the point where I was watching the entire video to try to prove myself wrong, right? Oh, you're making a snap judgment, right? So I would watch the whole thing and oh no, it wasn't a snap judgment. So by trusting me more, I'm getting the hang of that, for what I don't want to waste my time on.
Yeah. Would it be fair
I think that has to do with programming and conditioning, though. I think that's what I wanted to share about that, is that it's, for me anyway, when I was feeling into what is it about doing this in this particular way or trying this in a different way that bothered me, first of all. And it's that, I think it's that, again, it's that paying attention to someone when they're speaking to you. That's part of it came into play for me when I was, looking into why this was an issue for me. So there's a lot, I'm just saying that I think there's a lot of programming and conditioning of this is how one learns. This is how one informs oneself only. Because these other ways of
do you remember
pulling information?
Do you remember what it was specifically that I was talking about? Because I have no problem watching something all the way through. I just will get a hint of, well, I look at it from two different sets of framing. So I'm looking at something and, okay, would I like to look at all of this? Would I like to, is this something that I need to watch? Is something, or, because we're on video, so like that. Or am I looking because I'm being directed to it to go on the IUV? Sometimes they're both the same. Many times they're not. Many times this is for the IUV, and you don't. You don't need to watch that. Don't watch it. or, you know, do what you're researching to put it on the AAV, and then put it on the list for paying more attention to it, like either stripping the audio out and doing it when I can do that when I'm driving, or if I'm working in with plants, I can listen to it, and I'm not using the right or the wrong part of the brain that interferes, so I can get what I need to get. So that's just a shorthand way for me to do it. But I was curious, was there, if you remember, because I gave that as an example.
Right. I think you did. And
as a tool to do something.
Yes. And I'm not quite, my memory is not quite serving me as to what your example was for. What I took it for me, however, was first of all, a method of trusting myself,
Yes.
allowing the greater part of me to choose if there is even a spot in the video that is something I need to hear.
Right.
You know, going through if I felt so drawn or whatever.
And you may also hear very clearly, although oftentimes people don't heed it. Move along. keep on going. just pass this one on by. And you may be brought back to some point at another time, but a lot of times you'll hear very clearly, no, just pass it on.
Right. Well, that's why I said it took me a bit to recognize, I would say, my own patterns. You know, when one is not adept at paying attention to oneself, the feelings that they have in their body, the chitter chatter that may be going on in the head, you know, all of these things, much less all the other communication that now I am paying attention to that comes in at all times from, well, everything all around me.
So that's a really good example of things are not the way, you know, things are not the way we think they are, or the way they seem to be.
Yes.
You know, what you just talked about.
I've been feeling that for myself too. Like what Sheila was saying about not, you know, perusing the internet looking for, you know, I used to see it as putting my finger on the pulse. You know, I just want to know, putting my ear to the ground, you know, and that's what I'm scrolling around for. And I'm not doing that anymore. Not that I've stopped completely, but not to the, I used to use that as a tool almost exclusively in that way, that I'm noticing now I'm doing on my own, just within myself.
Yes.
So I'm, you know, the scrolling is nice, and it did, you know, it served me very well to a degree. Sometimes I needed it, and so it was good. But what I'm finding now is that I need it less and less, because the way that I had designed my use of Facebook helps me transition almost, because I'm thinking about how now when I'm doing the dishes, I'm scrolling inwardly, if you will. Okay, so, you know, where would you like my attention now? What should I be focusing on? And something will just sort of pop up if I'm just, you know, sort of gazing out the window or at the dish studs or whatever. But really getting lost in being present and really with my own inner awareness of what is going on. Because not only do I know what's going on, say internally in my own little universe of aches and pains, or how the energy is flowing, or just all of the plethora of information available to me just inside this little suit here. But then there's also the temperature of what is going on around me is really, it's all right in here. And then sometimes, like, for instance, you know, my mother's recently home from the hospital and has been convalescing. And so I find myself, instead of reaching for the phone or writing an email to her, I'm connecting with her, and like I'm sitting with her in the room, and you know, we're having full-on conversations about it, and you know, I'm assisting with energy when I can. And it's just a more, I don't feel like, oh, my mom's way over there and I wish I could be with her, I know she kind of needs me. None of that is happening inside of me at all. I have just really felt more connected, even though in one way you could say I am more disconnected than I have ever been. And what I mean by that is I'm disconnecting from all the external ways that I have grown quite accustomed to connecting. And I've more turned it into an inward practice and a daily, it almost feels like I don't need anybody externally in the same manner that I used to not feel alone. I don't know. It's such a weird way to describe how rich this experience is.
Yeah. Well, you know, you made a beautiful point that it's, first of all, the path that you're going through, that the path changes, and it will change yet again, because what before those things were a crutch, not a tool, and you weren't wielding them. Now you're honing your abilities and what's going on within you, and realizing that, you know, that need is disappear. So the need will disappear. The perception of the need will disappear.
Right.
And there'll be a shift again where you'll know, oh, I need to go to X, you know, maybe it's something on the IV or something on Facebook or something here. And you know, you just sit there, or you'll need to go to the computer now because there's research coming up, and you go and you'll sit there and you'll have your hands on the keyboard and you'll say, great, okay, search term. You'll type it in and something comes, or you'll start to find that, you know, tabs are open for you, that something just shows up right in front of you. Something that has nothing, you know, there's algorithms that do all sorts of websites, and where you've been, they'll track different things and serve up stuff for you, right? Mm-hmm. But you'll start to notice that what's being served up is beating the quote unquote algorithm, because not in anybody's, because it's all marketing, right? So in sales, not in anybody's algorithm has this been there, but this was for you to see. So it popped up into one of those rotating window, you know, a window that shows you something, because it's presenting itself in front of you. Does that make sense? So you're now everything else is an extension of you and a tool that you know, it's your baton as the conductor. And so in the symphony that you're going through and playing in and experiencing and creating, you know, it's lighting up and you're tapping on this one thing, whether it's to go get in the car. We've talked about this before. You get in the car and go and do different things, you know. And one of the things that the thought of playing with this conversation is that many beings tend to have a very set thought of and containerized versions of the way things are and how they go through. And so it's kind of two-pronged. One is to look at each of those whenever they show up. So that could be a couple 100 million times a day, depending on, you know, what you're doing, and reevaluate it. You know, not necessarily argue with it or just say wholesale, well, no, that's the old, but it's encountering it as if for the first time, and so you can play with that. The other is to then realize that when you're wanting to, well, when you're experiencing things, like you look at clouds all of a sudden and the clouds are there, that they're very different, and you you're seeing things different in the clouds, and you're going, is anybody else seeing this? You know, what's going on, right? Kind of a thing. So instead of calling up the old frame of, well, that, you know, there's so many kinds of clouds, or maybe the frame is, oh, well, those look just funny to you because it's chemtrails or whatever it is. It's, you know, it's kind of like there's stock, instead of stock footage, there's stock kind of templates for the way things are that we file things under, and we pull those old files and try to run. The problem is, we can't run what's coming in and all of our senses and all of our knowing and all of our quantum and multidimensionality that's showing through. We can't run it on those old things anymore because they don't compute.
Well, we need to like wipe all of those templates completely clean and start all of them brand new, or I'm assuming there will be some aspects of those, how it was or how it has been or how we thought it was moving forward. Does that make sense?
Well, they're different energies, so they can be brought into existence as if for the first time, and then they'll hold a different frequency. And they may, you might look at them and go, oh, well, this works kind of like, you know, that other thing, but I see it has a nuances. So the answer is no, everything has to be completely new. Because that's all from a construct, and this not only was a construct and a false construct of it, but it's from a different frequency bandwidth energy. Mm-hmm. So it holds different components, it attracts different things, and that energy is no longer supported, so it's slipping away, you know, on its own right as well.
Right.
So does an example of the way, so thinking of something, the way things were, come to mind, and we'll play with that, because there's one's floated around in this group, or this group, but I couldn't quite catch it to
figure out who it was.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, I couldn't quite catch it enough to hold on to speak it back out to play with it.
Well, it might have been me, because I got a half thing came in, and then it just kind of sometimes things only flit by. And if I reach out and try to grab it, it flits faster. So
well, I'll just rattle a few kind of things. It's kind of a generic list, but you know, you have to go to school, and you've got to get an education, and you've got to go to work.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, that's just, like I said, these are very kind of pigeonholed type of thing, but because they're so basic, and okay, well, I just heard a whole bunch of people say, well, yeah, you do. So we think things are a certain way. We think that gravity is such that it holds us in a certain way, but a lot of people have been noticing themselves walking like this, you know, and that they take steps in a different way, and the ground is not where it's supposed to be.
No, that's very true.
All over our house.
Don't be telling on me.
Walking thing is real.
I had that happen a few times quite a while back, or the sensation, like actually in the shower, it happened several times, as if it was going to collapse, or if it was spongy, or or some stairs too. I've had that, and it hasn't been recently. I've had some vertigo recently, but there was, for a while, I was having it pretty frequently, where it was very subtle, very nuanced, but I was just like, you know, my gyroscope was, you know, to tell that it wasn't where it should have been, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just gave a beautiful example of exactly what I'm talking about. So when you noticed it before, it was demonstrable. It was nuanced, but it was like, whoa, you know,
right.
Put your foot down. And part of the reason, so you say, well, it's not that happening that much anymore. Yes and no. So you've changed in the way that you move through, swim through, and you've gotten more used to your changes in your own body and how you walk through energy, and your energy bandwidth that you're holding is much bigger. So it would be, and one way to say that, it's very inaccurate to say that it's not happening anymore. You just navigate through it, so it isn't quite, like you missed the step, or you're tilting, or you're having that phasing. So the floor was phasing, and that's the squishiness in it, the solidity of it. You just can navigate through that because you're residing in that. So it's not, it just is. So you don't notice it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Lisa and I were out on Friday doing some grocery shopping, and as we were walking into this Earth Fair, I turned to Lisa and I said, "It feels different in here." And I was talking about my body because I was walking different. I feel different. And that's how I told her. I said, "It feels different in here." And I didn't know how else to explain that.
Because I didn't know what you meant by in here. The whole food or what? Or wherever we were. And so then when you said I'm her, then I knew.
Yeah. So I mean, I hadn't thought about it quite like that either, but yeah.
Well, think about it. You kind of acclimate, and then you have more bandwidth available. And then of course you might have this sideways step here and there, and then you acclimate.
Right. It's almost like you've filled in or expanded into the space that you're trying to navigate.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So before you got into that space, and when you started to go, you thought, "Whoa, what is this?" Or "This is weird," or "I'm tilting," or whatever it is, right? Because now when you're in there, so the difference when you were before that, it just is. So the way things are, you walk upright. Occasionally you may trip because you stub your toe on something, but not like that, right? Then you have the demarcation line where you feel the sideways or the different things that we're talking about, and you notice it and you flow with it, and now you're in there. So now it just is, because you're different. Right. But since you're different and it just is. So, if something, you breathe, you don't go, "Oh my God, I breathe." Wow, that was, you right? You understand what I'm saying? Because it is. You may.
Because it almost seemed like discouraging, because it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was happening. It happened in the beginning or whatever, and then it kind of tapered off. Seemed to taper off.
Oh yeah. Oh, I feel you on that, because you have these really cool, expansive experiences, and then they kind of go away, and you're like, "Okay, wait a minute. What did I do wrong?"
No, they don't go away. You reside there. You just need to call it up, because you play. They're at the genesis of you. They're waiting for you to go, "Okay, when are we going to play? Come on."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so that would be the programming, thinking
that
they were gone.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, first of all. Yeah, because that's what we do, right? Oh, I experienced that one time. So some of it we will acclimate to, and if we wish to experience it again, we can then call it up.
Yeah,
now I can attest to the calling up.
I wouldn't quite describe it that way. So let me see if I can.
Is it the novelty of it wears off, because you just get
because
used to
it's you. So if you ever gone into a walk-in freezer? Have you ever been
Yes.
Okay. So you're out in whatever the store or the regular rest of the place is, and it's room temperature, let's say. You open the door and you don't even have to walk over the threshold of a walk-in freezer, but you can feel that it's different. You can see that the air looks different because it's colder, molecules, all that kind of stuff. But you can just see that looks different, and you can feel that it's different, right? So the room is you didn't pay a lot of attention. Oh, it's 98 degrees Celsius in here. Or, well, okay, that would be real hot. 98 degrees Fahrenheit in here, and what you're doing, right? You're just in the room because that's where your set point is that moment. Now you open the door to the walk-in freezer and you can see, feel, experience a differential between the room where you were or are still standing and the walk-in freezer. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So your gravity is one way, and that's in the room that you're used to. And now you're shifting. So the gravity within you, because your cells and all of the molecular structure and all of the frequency structures of your being, and it's not just the shirt. So it doesn't end right at the edge of your skin. So first of all, now you're noticing that you don't end at the edge of your skin. That's part of it.
True.
You may not go, oh, I don't end at the edge of my skin. I mean, this may not be, so for some people it is. Some people can break down the things, and for a lot it's just, I'm walking sideways. Or, wow, I feel a pocket of, it feels different. I haven't walked over the threshold yet. Now you're over the threshold, and maybe the walk-in isn't, I only use the walk-in as a good example because you can feel the differential in the air temperature, and you can see that it's different. So once you're over the threshold, so once you've gone, whoa, okay, I've got my balance now, or this cool thing happened, or I experienced it, whatever that is, insert your metaphor for what you've experienced here. Once you've stepped over, now it just is. So you're swimming in whatever the frequency was that you called up that thing. The thing being called up was you calling the thing up to go, hey, can you hear me now? Right? And you noticed it, you experienced it, you played with it, you thought, oh, cool. Then you move through it because now you have integrated that energy shift within you. Now you're there. Depending on how you play with things, well, that's just why playing with things, anything, all things, everything is so cool, fun, and begets more of the playing with. Once you cross that threshold, you've only to tune in and play again to have not only it's not the same experience, but to have an experience with that, whatever that is, and actually expand your muscles, I'm trying to use, these are just linear placeholder words for it, but as you play with it, you can expand your capability. Like if you haven't ever, bounced a ball much, if you bounce a ball for a bit, your hand gets tired and, your arm gets tired. And so, but if you keep bouncing and playing with the ball, not only do you learn how to bounce it that way, but you get a little chuck and jive going and get some stuff going on, right? And because you're calling it forth. If you don't pick up the ball to bounce it, does the ball bounce?
No.
See, am I trying to make some sense here? It's very different.
No, you are. No, that makes perfect sense.
So you encountered something and you said, oh man, look at that ball. Yeah, okay, I got it going now, right? I'm right playing, right? And then you got used to the flow. It settled in and integrated. And then something else caught your attention. Either was the way things are caught your attention, or something came up, right? And now you come back and say, well, damn, where's the ball? Well, this doesn't work. I don't get to bounce it. The ball's sitting right here. It's waiting for you to pick it up and bounce it. And it's like, psst. Yeah, bounce, right? this is how it goes, because the world around us, the reality around us, that our reality, our universe is in reaction to, is in response to us. We're the genesis of it. So once we move through this stuff, if using the ball thing, if we don't notice the ball, maybe it's behind the chair, I don't know, maybe we put it someplace, right? And we're not picking it up, well, okay, well, it's free will choice, but we're still assuming that someday she'll pick me back up again and bounce me, right? So it's very akin to that analogy of, you ordered on a menu for takeout, from the bouncing ball buffet, and you were so excited because it tasted really good. Then you want to do it again, and you say, well, it's not around, so I'll try this, or well, forget that. It's taking too long. I'm going to go out, and the delivery person shows up and knocks on the door, and you're not there. So I guess one simple way to say it is no, I don't like that.
Well, that's what you're saying there is back to, am I participating? That's what I'm getting there. Well, that's part of it.
And part of it is the way things are. So you think, and this is the collective you thinks, that, we're gonna have ascension. And, okay, I got my bags packed and I'm ready to go. Or the way things are, that's just crazy talk. Or the way things are that someone, is going to give me the ball, help me bounce it, make me bounce it, bounce it for me, any combination thereof. And because everything else is at the behest of somebody else who's bigger, stronger, prettier, handsomer, richer, powerfuler, whatever it is. And okay, that doesn't really belong in this, but I get your point. So it doesn't fit into the thing of the way things are, that as a wholesale, that everything is at the behest of us. That's just not on the regular old way things are playbook. So one of the things that came in, and this is a whole other conversation, but for some reason maybe it's the right place in here. Hey. And maybe no one's ever wondered, but why, if you have a glimpse of the deep state, and you have a glimpse of the false construct, and you have a kind of a glimpse of things are not really as they seem, just a little smidge of a glimpse of that, and you start to play, well, have you ever wondered what the fascination is, what the richness is of the commodity of human beings, specifically their blood and the energy frequencies that they give off? So you could look into dark places, in this analogy of that, because the human being is and so we'll have to start with the organic human being that's now wrapped in kind of this miasma of the false construct and programming and conditioning and all that kind of stuff. But it has abilities. So we have abilities, even if we're sound asleep and are not, going through squishy floors in the shower or leaning or whatever it is. that we have that connection with innately. It's just part of our makeup. That many, 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 many other this isn't accurate, but life forms do not. Where they are, they may be incredibly superior as far as technological, or in fact that they've been around, the multiverse, many more eons than we have, right? So that with the learning curve and all that kind of stuff. But as you start to dive into things and you start to uncover pieces, and even if it's just a little tiny bit here and there, right? You don't have to go, you can if you want, but jump to the, but one of the common things is that we're such a highly prized commodity, and that's what we are. So whether it's from a benign and expansive, loving viewpoint, or from a malevolent and very constrictive and dark viewpoint, nonetheless, there's characteristics, there are abilities, there are things innate within the human being that are coveted. So the reason I bring this up is, we think, you said participating, well, it's more about the way things, kind of stepping outside of, this is why this is important, to step out of the way that you think things are, because you think you're small. Except I just gave you a glimpse at why, across the multiverses, they're all coming here and coveting you. Because what we have is magical and a component that's highly sought after. So you could look into the whole dark story, or you could just go to the bigger picture and go, okay, well, hang on. So the malevolent ones are interested here, and the, expansive, joyful ones are interested here. So what's going on here? We got 4 examples right here. And that's a way that helps you shift that everything that you think the way things are is not. Full stop. Complete thought. End of sentence. And just holding letting go of everything, your linear mind. So the linear mind is, let go of that. But that changes everything, because that's a picture frame that you've put on your entire existence here. And it has, connect the dots and Lincoln logs and hooks and all sorts of things that have ramifications and connections, connectors, threads, anchors to everything else. So just looking at that one piece, even playing with a little bit of that one piece, which is what the title of this is, changes everything. And there's no coddling in it, because now you realize that you are 100% responsible and accountable and liable. So you're able to see the lie now of you being small. And as you account for these different things, you can now be able to shift how you're doing things. And you can do it in an instant, because time doesn't exist. That's one of those things that we think the way things are, You got so many days in a month, you have so many hours in a day, it takes so long to do this. Have you ever, so there's a good example of just kind of pull a little piece out. You're doing a task, and the task is going to take X X amount of time to accomplish something at work, or X amount of time to get through school, or X amount of time to get, I'm just trying to think of things that are more universal that people would, if not experience it themselves, have heard about, right? Yet there are examples. It takes X amount of time to heal oneself. You got to have surgery, you got to have this, you got to rehab, and then there are lots of examples. And if you look for them, you'll find more. And a lot of them are covered up and on purpose because they don't want to be seen. The false construct doesn't want you to see them. But you can heal right away. You can make something within your body dematerialize right away. You can have an accelerated point of learning where you can catch up from what would be, grades worth of stuff in the way things are overnight, or over, a couple months' time, depending on. It's the very thought and the very thought form of the way things are. Fill in whatever that is. And it's all different, and there's lots of similarities, and they're kind of wholesale narratives in the US collective, in the Eastern collective of the world, the Western, right? So you can break it in different ways you want to do it. But as soon as you take that piece out, it changes everything else, because those pieces don't fit together anymore.
So basically what we're saying is that it is I'll just speak for myself here. It's my penchant for my linear brain at the moment, and all that it continues to believe at this point, that prevents me from doing anything that I think I want to accomplish or want to experience at this point. It is that portion, that aspect of me that hasn't let go of that linear portion yet. Because for me, I see very clearly that there's still a linear portion. I don't necessarily feel like it has to have a label necessarily, but there's probably attached to some more of programming and conditioning that I will eventually root out. But it is that portion that prevents us from just stepping in and doing whatever it is that we desire to do.
I think it's probably like a familiarity or a reference point. It's like your go-to. You go, because I was thinking like
habit.
Yeah, it's like it hasn't even dawned on us that like I was thinking today. I was like, I wonder if there's or when will there become a time when I could hear someone speaking another language and actually understand what that not understand what they're saying intuitively or what have you, but actually understand the language. So that's funny that, we're talking about something like this. Or, if I wanted to learn piano, but for the longest time, I didn't take, my mom wanted to give me piano lessons when I was little, and I didn't want to do them because I didn't want to do a recital. Not that I really apparently even knew what a recital was, but I knew I didn't want to do one. And I could kick myself because if I had, done it, I would have loved it, and, but anyway, it all worked out. But, but you feel like you didn't learn when you were little. If you didn't learn Spanish when you were little, you're never going to learn it now. It's so much harder as an adult, blah, 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 blah. So I wonder.
So programming. You just rattled out, they're programming, but it's also their monikers of the way things are. So you just rattled off, I couldn't involve a whole bunch of them. Got, if you don't learn young, your brain doesn't work. We only use, on the one hand, we're not using our capabilities and we only use 10%. Well, okay, part of that is, that's a whole other big conversation, but what that is. But yeah, so all of those things, and anytime you buy into even any one of those, then it has unseen chain reactions and tentacles or bindings that go into other things that you then may be looking at. So that part is seen for you. A good example, speaking of the unseen, remember we did the conversation the other day about, you know, the unseen. And I said to you in that, well, what makes you, you know, not only you, Sheila, but the royal you, what makes you think that it is unseen, that it is unknown, the unknown, you know, afraid of the unknown?
Yeah.
And when I brought that to you, and what you happen to be talking about the third husband, I said, well, what makes you think it was unknown? So just in that, that's something. It's like a door that we've closed, or chains that we've looped on us, or a big ditch, you know, that's 52 million miles wide that we put in front of us. No, I can't do that. You know, and you gave a bunch of examples, David. Well, you know, I didn't learn young, and this, that, and the other thing, and
yeah.
So what's the thought of, you know, just to carry that a little further, dear, what's the thought that is in you that you can't learn the piano now?
Well, I mean, there's not. I was talking about in the past, that's, you know, I felt like we were always taught, or, you know, because kids, you know, absorb and learn languages and blah, blah, blah. So, but then as you got older, it did seem like it was harder to try, you know, or whatever. So it felt like it was fulfilling the prophecy that everyone said, yes, you can't learn that as an adult.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't believe that these days, but I don't yet know how or remember how to make it happen.
Right.
I'm not trying to learn piano, but one that actually is, that I've been struggling with is you're talking about healing. And I've had a hernia now for like almost 2 years, not to be TMI, but and I, you know, went to the doctor, what a nightmare. And, you know, I knew that I didn't want to have surgery. All kinds of, you know, just weird. And then it's like, it's so common and they don't really know exactly why or how to prevent. I was like, it's 1 in 3 guys have a hernia, but, you know, that's the best way you're able to fix it is by, you know, doing all kinds of, so, right. But I haven't been able to heal myself yet, or figured it out. Not that I have actually put focused, consistent if I need to, but that was something that I wanted to ask UBZ if you had any tips on how to make that happen or manifest,
yeah,
you know, healing or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a couple of examples that I've, you know, done with myself. My eyes, I've mentioned in another thing where I used to wear, you know, I had cataract surgery, double cataract surgery when I was 37 and a half, and then I think it was 6 months later, so 38 around there. And very, very young for someone, you know, to have cataracts. But they weren't, you know, the way things are, because cataracts and old age and this, that, and the other thing. I knew exactly what they were. They were, you know, I refer to them as spiritual cataracts, because I wasn't willing to see the breadth and depth of things clearly, of the truth of who I was, and embrace it, because I knew if I went in that path, a whole bunch of other paths that I thought I was on, and, you know, were the way things are or should be, would dematerialize right quick. They did. But I went through it anyway. So that's just an example. And so the healing part as a result of that, of having that, I had Coke bottle thick glasses that I needed for reading, because you don't have, when you take your lenses out for your cataracts, they're not manipulable by your body anymore, because they put ones that are especially made for you, but they're in and they're there.
Right.
And so I had them for a long time, and I had the thought one night sitting down that, I'm getting tired of these. I don't want to wear glasses anymore. And then I put them on and proceeded to do whatever I was doing. And I know that in the, if I had a stopwatch, it probably was 90-second sort of a span of time of thinking that. I'm trying to back into it. So thinking that, and in no attachment, no, I'm going to manifest this, or, work on this, or do whatever. But I think one way I would say it is the pureness of the thought, and was a directive in there as well to that, was very clean. But there was no attachment like, well, come on, guides, or come on this, or, say it, or, check, kind of wasn't any of that kind of stuff. It was a pure and clean moment of 90 seconds-ish of moment. And then I went to whatever. And it was about or almost a week later, I was sitting down to read a new book from the library, and I was told to take the glasses off. And I'm like, but I want to read the book. Take this off. Okay. Took the glasses off. Now read. And I read the 836 page book, and then remembered that I'd never put the glasses back on again. Oh, wow. The glasses were this thick.
Right. So that was after the 90-second
yes.
talk thing you had. Okay.
Yeah. And I've never worn them again. I don't use glasses. I don't need them unless something type is really, 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 really tiny, and it's very shadowy, like, you're in a shed at night and you're trying to read the directions on something to start it, right. And it's very small type, and then I'll pull out the flashlight on my phone, shine light on it. But other than that, I have no trouble reading small print, fine print, faded things.
So were you commanding your body to, like, was it a statement or a request or a demand or a heart to heart with what do you think that
yes.
it was? Nice. Okay.
Yes, because and the reason I answer that is because that's correct. That's my correct answer for that. But I was combining, so think of the way that you just kind of enumerated those. So all of the different me's,
right,
were doing all of those things from all of the facets of that, asking, demanding, commanding, all those things. So we don't heal anything, because we don't need to heal anything. We whole things. And we have the ability to hold. So one thing that you could play with, and you don't necessarily have to do it here, because I think, you can if you want, but I think it's a journey that would be interesting for you to play with. You said it's 2 years. So there's something in that journey of this, right? That has open things for you to look at, or to experience, or to encounter, or interact with, to heal on different things from your thought of healing, to then what you're really doing is holding within all of you different things. So what makes you think you're not doing it right now?
Well, there have been times when it seems like there's some repair or some holding going on, and it's usually when I've been meditating or listening to certain frequency videos. And like there's one specifically that it's a Tesla coil, and it's like and it's actually several, and they're like 10, 15 minutes long, but I could feel it, I felt like different parts of my body. It was new, and there was one specifically time it actually felt like there was these little nanobots in there doing, it was just the sensation. And I've not had it since then, and that's been probably a year ago now. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see I've definitely tried to stick to my guns because I just knew somewhere on some level that the whole medical, it was ridiculous. And, there's some complications but the pain, it's not all the time, but when it hasn't healed, and when it rears its ugly head, I mean, a lot of times at work or whatever, if I'm standing up 10 or 12 hours, it could be really painful or what have you. So,
right.
But the rest of the time it's not painful, so I'm able to tolerate it. So,
well, let me rephrase the question, because I didn't say it in a way. I mean, everything that you just said is helpful, but what I was really wanting to present for you to play with is you're wanting to heal this, but it's been 2 years, and I'm saying, what makes you think that you are not on the path in the process of all the things, because it's not in isolation.
Right. Well, I mean, I can see the value in just getting to this point of, standing up for myself and saying no to the medical establishment, whereas, that, who knows? And I'm not going to trust them. Like, who knows what could,
so
go on. Some of the rabbit holes I've been down, it's like, what are they going to fit in me?
Yeah,
blah,
you
blah,
bring
blah.
up a great point. So this could be your Tennessee court case.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised to hear that. I was actually expecting you to be like, well, have you actually put any effort into it? Kind of like some of the things that were like, that I was expecting. And I haven't, to make it look like how, the daily, intention or what have you. So I was surprised to hear you say it was a 90-second thing, and that, but it's refreshing to hear that too. So, but I mean, I guess it makes sense as well that if we're that kick-ass creator being.
Well, we have a similar thing, you and I have a hernia as well.
Oh yeah.
Mine's in a different area. It's right here, but I feel absolutely certain, because I really started paying very close attention to my body, how it felt ever since my once I started getting off of all the drugs that I was on, because I was on 14 different ones, and I really started paying attention to my body and the way it felt. And I have had a lot of surgeries. I've had over 20. And so there's been a lot of damage done in here already, a lot of cutting and that sort of thing. And I know my body is healing. Mm-hmm. And I actually don't give it as much attention of asking it to heal or working with it to heal. I just know it is healing. And what I am doing now that I didn't do, I'm thanking it every day and attending to it and pampering it in ways that I've never done before, because quite frankly, this body waited for me. I tortured this body so badly that I'm actually quite surprised that it hung around and waited for me. So I can feel the difference in me without even willing it, or it's like I used to think that, and I do still think that it's best that we take good care of our bodies. as I did not. But as someone who didn't, and the fact that I'm still here now, I think that it has more, for me anyway, I really feel like it has more to do with where we are and what our path is or whatever. As to first of all, I think that our bodies are doing this. I that's just the way I feel about my own. And maybe I could speed it along. I don't know, but I also know, I just feel it all changing.
Do you still have the same amount of pain or symptoms that you did?
I have very little pain, very little pain. I get the aches and pains as usual, like if I haven't had enough of my water in a day or something, and I get all swollen or whatever, and I've been sitting stiff, things like that. But it's not, there's no pain like there used to be, first of all. And in my specific case, I can tell that my hernia is, it just looks and feels different in my body. It's, I don't even know how to explain that. It just
has shrunk quite a bit in the last year.
Yeah, I really feel like it has, because it's quite large. And yeah, it does feel like it has shrunk, and at times I don't even see it.
Right. So do you feel like that was your body that caused it?
Oh no, there's a whole litany of things that happened to cause that. Being 490 pounds caused that. I'm sure that was a part of it.
Well, one of the things I just want to point out, you mentioned the different drugs, and so that would be an example of things that's the way things are. That I'm not a doctor, and I don't even know the drugs you've been on, but I would put it out there that at least several of those drugs, specifically if you went to any doctor, say, and you cannot get off of these. Once you take them, you must, dire consequences will happen. Yeah, look at her. Yeah. and that's the turn, the twist, the reason that this is so important to let go of all of this, because things are not the way that we think they are. And saying that dire consequence, yes, because now here's someone who has lost a tremendous amount of weight, who's off all of these drugs, who is happier, healthier, more fit, more able than she has been for however many years, a long time, right? And not taking any of the things of the way things are. In fact, she threw them all out the window. So again, that's one example. That's a visual example that you can see that the way things are, and we don't even, once we can start to realize that that's one of those, the way things are. Oh, and that's another one, the way things are. We can notice that it shifts things, but they're inhibiting us, the way, those way things are, is that we hold ourselves. We're blocking ourselves from moving forward with those because they are mutually exclusive of each other. They are completely different frequency bandwidths and channels.
So I have a question. When you're saying how we thought things were, or the way things are, and you're saying that that's not the way that the things are, they never were, and they're definitely not now. Right. Is there a way that things are? Like, is there something that or is it just all potentials in this big now?
Both.
Moving forward. Touche.
Well, I mean, right? You're a singularity. You've got 4 singularities on here right this minute. Mm-hmm. So that question and that answer applies to all 4 in various different ways. Some could be exactly the same. Some could be wholly different. Some could be a little of this and a little that, little, a piece of David's and a piece of Sheila's and a piece of Lisa's adds on to the 3/4 of the pieces of Beezy's, and that's for that one. Yeah. So, that you could have some broad strokes in that, the way things are. Yes, you're not small, and you're eternal, and you're a kick-ass creator being, and you are a fractal of source. Yes. And you have all of these abilities, and you are not separate. You're not in that dualistic state that you think you are. You're all energy. So those are a few. They're pretty big because they encompass everything else in them. So those you could look at as the way things. How did you phrase it? The way things really are? Is that how you phrase it?
I don't know. I said the way things were. Is there a way things are?
Yeah. Is there a way things really are?
Okay. So those.
It's so multi-leveled. I don't know if there's a way to say.
Like, are we looking for? If we're trying to say that they're definitely not this way, is there a right way, or or not a right way? But,
I know what you're looking for.
Or there's some prototype.
I know
of
what
it. Beautiful. Did you realize what you just did there? You put the separation back in. You put the duality back in.
What about?
Is there a right way?
Right. Yeah, I mean.
So what I was going to say is a good way to hold it is building blocks. If you looked at those things that I mentioned, so, that you're a singularity and you're a unification of all of source, right? So that would be a building block component. And that piece of a puzzle, if we're going to look at a puzzle metaphor, right? So that piece could be shaped like this, and you have another piece that shapes like that, and that piece can change its shape in unlimited ways and facets and compounds and structures and substance and no substanceness. So the best way to say is those are building blocks you could kind of hang your hat on to play with it. So is there a certain way things are supposed to be? The only answer to that, and there's only one, and it's love. And it's not the love that we think on this planet, this society.
And other than that, for me, I feel it's all potentiality. And that's why I was smiling really big over here. That's why I love the fact that that's where I want to go. I always like to step right into the fantastical, because that's actually where we need to go.
Right.
Where we need to go.
That's where I feel like we need to go. Well, because so I'm calling it the fantastical, but it only sounds fantastical if you're still over there in the linear, because it's really not fantastical.
Right.
I really can.
The way things really are.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Or one example of the way things can be.
Yeah, you're multidimensional. You just are.
Well, right. Sheila had said, what we really need to do, and I would characterize it as the beauty of allowing ourselves to go there shows us all things. We can pop those things out. That's how we do it, and we can put them back.
But isn't that in a way how we got here in the mess that we're coming up out of by going down one of the potentiality paths?
Yes.
So.
Well, we're very fond of calling this a mess. We're very fond of calling this a mess. And I realize that a lot of folks feel like all of this is a mess. I don't think so anymore. I don't really.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, I just want to see that the fun or the consternation of this depending on the perspective and where you are, is first of all, the language is linear language, and it has, things. So, okay, that's kind of a rub there. Gives you a headache trying to use it. And for some, it's a holy god awful mess. Absolutely. That perspective is a 100% valid, absolutely descriptive perspective on this. Absolutely. Is that the totality of the truth of what that is? No.
Exactly.
No.
And I guess that's my point. Yes, I can see the level of that. I'm not saying by any stretch that everything's all, peaches and cream everywhere and everybody else is crazy and I'm not. That's not what I'm saying here. I can see the level of that, but I also I can also see and feel the beauty of what has taken place here.
Mm-hmm.
And it again, it's that something I've noticed a lot over the last little bit here is that our part of the programming and conditioning I know I was exposed to and drank in like it was nectar was running from pain. And we're taught that at every turn, don't suffer with a headache, take a Tylenol. Don't suffer with a, sore throat, pop a lozenge. Yep. If you got a fever, go to the doctor. Don't be sad, take a pill, have a drink. Go have a party, whatever. Nobody ever takes the time to allow the misery of whatever it is that's trying to inform us. First of all, pain it's an attention getter. And instead of trying to shuffle it off at every, because I'm telling you, I was world class at that. Yeah. So instead of allowing it to inform us of something, and actually feeling it and going through it and integrating parts of it, we've been programmed and conditioned to put all of that away as fast as and run as fast as we can. And so I kind of equate the idea that this was all a horrible mess to that same thing. And I don't think that that's because I see it quite differently now. I see it all quite differently than I did before.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can see all.
That's one of those paths, it's a journey to get that. You can go from a horrible mess, David. I mean, why am I prettying it up? You could go from that, and that's all you can see, feel, sense, know, and explain in great detail from personal experience, from other experiences, right? To seeing what Sheila's talking about, and that at the same time, you can go it like that. It doesn't take any longer than that. Some, it could be a long road, and it depends. It's all how we're choosing it to do it. It's how we're looking at it. Because that pulling, the cameraman on the dolly being able to have the wheels spin you back so that you can get a really super wide angle and a telephoto on the wide angle so that you can focus in tight on the details of this sublimely delicious, beautiful thing here, or this royal rot ass mess over here, right? And see them both. But that is when you get to the scope of who and what we are. And in the being that we are, which is the human being, which is the organic human, which has, so you could, these are just placeholders, but you could look at it that we're coming back to and bringing online our organic human template for really the first time in eons of generational thing because of the false, that's how long the false construct, because this, you know, this is not Democrats and Republicans, it's not the last several administrations, it's eons. It's before the known history. And that's part of it, you know, it's a big subject. So it's there, you know, there's the galactic wars and this and the other thing. We could go through a whole okay. When you do that, then you also see that, so okay, so I don't know where we're going. So that's coming back online. Yes, that is occurring. So we could say in that we're going back to what really was, the flower used to be this magnificent, you know, incredibly beautiful flower with all these capabilities, fragrance, scent, moving, you know, all that kind of stuff. We're going back to that. Yes. Or you could rephrase it that that's blooming forth within us and hasn't for a very long time. And at the same time, and much beyond that, we are leaping forward. So this is a quantum leap evolution. Ascension is another way that it's called, that we're becoming something completely new, but of the from the organic human template from that. So we're kind of we're digging through all of the miasma of the false construct and the programming, conditioning, and integrating to get back to the organic human, and then from that, in that process, we're moving forward. So does that make sense?
Well, let me if I could, let me paraphrase back to you what I think I heard you say, because when you're speaking on going back to the original organic human, you're speaking on the fact that our DNA is going back to the original template that it was designed before the tinkering.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to be clear on that because I heard a couple of questions. What do you mean going back?
And yeah, well, that's that. For some reason, that phrase keeps popping in my mind. It's a really piss poor phrase, but sorry. So you're taking off all the coats that covered the organic human, right?
And that we chose to cover. Like no one else covered us. We chose to be covered.
Oh no, there was tinkering that it created the covering.
Yeah, there was DNA.
So we didn't choose that. Like we didn't choose that could have been one of the potentialities. Like we didn't say we're going into this matrix and whatever happens, it's a free will zone. Like
yeah,
did we know that was one of the options?
Yes, that was one of the options.
We knew that. Or maybe not in this much detail, but we knew that.
Yeah, well, it hadn't been created yet, so you know we're that good. We, you know, we didn't want to limit ourselves. So yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. I think, and David, I don't know. I'm making an assumption here, but in what you just asked right there, I hear a question, and maybe you're not the one asking it. It's probably someone else. I personally don't think that anything has been done to us on the grandest scale. Yes, I'm not saying that it wasn't done to us, because it was, obviously, clearly.
It's both. It's both.
Right, that's what I'm saying. On the most expansive scale, though, we all, because there is really only one of us.
Yeah, we're source going forth to no source. So nothing was done to anybody, and it was all in free will choice. Not only that, it was exuberant. All right, let me at him. You know, let's do this, right? Absolutely. And a myriad of different gradations and shading of those things. And absolutely the organic human template was hijacked. And yes, so all of those things are absolutely correct ways to give voice to what has gone on. And someone says, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, like what? It's either that one or no. because, and this is why this conversation is so important, because letting go of everything your linear mind clings to as the way things are. It's either this way or this way. And you said it yourself, Dave, when you were asking the question. So what's the real way, right? Or the right way of what, I forgot how you asked it, what, if we're letting go of what we think things were or are, right? What's the way they are? That's the right way.
Well, I was saying, is there and I know when I said right way that that's not what I meant, but that's
right.
kind of what a lot of people would say it that way. And I would have said it that way a year ago, what have you.
Yeah. So yes, there is, you could answer that is, there is no right way, or yes, there are, I don't even know the right number for it, but I know it has a whole lot of galaxies full of commas and zeros in it. Of right ways. And that's why there is no truth, but there are things that are true. So, was the tinkering that went along with it, that covered over, put all the coats on the organic human, is there true? Are there components in that are true? Yes. Is that truth like it's the only thing and it's, categorically nothing else outside of that story is true? No. Because it has to do with the perspective of the way that it's held.
So when you talk about us being, we were at the campfire and we decided we're going to do this. Who wants to play the good, bad, but yada, yada, yada. Were the tinkerers at that campfire meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's one of the important things to keep in mind, I feel.
It was a really fun meeting.
and so that's where we're snapping back to before we go beyond, is that campfire where everybody is in that, or that pure sourceness, I guess, state, or
yes,
or
because it's a quantum. Yes. So okay, back to is not, I'm trying to use a linear placer. So
I say that because
BZ, hold on a second. I want to say something because this came in twice now. Okay, it's because we still tend to look at things in a linear fashion. All of what you're saying is happening all at the same time, I feel. Just like I've felt for a very long time that past lives are not past, they're concurrent.
What did you say, BZ? And it already has happened? Is that what you said?
That's what I mean. It's all
okay. His ears hurt now. What?
Yeah.
Because well, first of all, so that's why I describe things in a certain way, with the caveat that it's a linear placeholder. So when you came to the planet, so your mom was pregnant and David popped out. Your whole physical structure, all of the structure of all of your bodies was one way, right?
Okay.
So let me see if this may help in three pieces. So before you came into the wee David, into the quickening within your mom's tummy, that energy signature, that which was David there, had all sorts of abilities and things hooked up, we'll say. Okay. And David came through and went through the process. Okay, so the humans. So where David is right this moment is absolutely totally different being than David as a little baby that came out of his mom.
Okay.
Are you with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because of the experiences I've had as a human.
So just on a linear way, yes.
Right.
And the expansion that's taken place with you, but now up into these moments with all of the things that you have been consciously doing, and your level of consciousness is completely expanded from David who came out of the womb. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now remember the David, to put a moniker on it, that came before he came into his mom.
Right.
In a lot of how do I say this? In a lot of ways, I think I'll just use the ambiguous term. In a lot of ways, the David in this chair right now is expanded beyond the David before he came into David's mom's tummy.
Right. That makes sense.
And as all of you is imploding into you of what this ascension and embodiment, Stargate ascension, quantum evolutionary jump, doesn't really matter how you hold it, just it's big stuff's happening. However you want to hold it, right? So you're creating, there's a trinity happening, so you're creating that new being. So we could look at this, it's not correct, but it's help a little bit with the visual. So the David before you came onto the planet,
right,
and the David that's here now,
right,
are holding and coming together, imploding into. So you're the vessel. In the chair is the vessel for all of David out here, right? Coming in, and the resulting, the magic of that creates the new being, which is the Trinity that comes forth, that is given, you're giving a creative force to this new thing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And that new thing is, so that's kind of where the organic human, right, when you came in before tinkering, comes and meets with that. So on the one hand, you're going back to Psalms, the coats of, only certain capacities, only certain parts of the DNA, only certain things, kind of catching up to yourself that way, at the same time, instantaneously, that you're complete, never existed before, ever, in all of Source's multiverses. So if you have a hernia, and I'm not making light of any of these things, but I'm just trying to put a little perspective. If you have a hernia, if you have, a shattered leg in 5 places like I had, or you had various other things, or various homeless, or a whole myriad of things, right? That all beings are going through in various different gyrations of. It's part of the process of unwinding and unbinding all of this, because the expansion that occurs as we go through all of those different things, either the flowing with, the resistance to, the bumps and scrapes, the absolute amazing highs, all those combinations and so many more, is part of all of this, because it's toroidal, all of the gyrations that go through that are, cleaning and clearing all of those imperfections of the David as he's gone through this path from in mom to in the chair, right? And prior to, so the organic human part before the tinkering, all of that is coming. It's a big stuff.
And is it a definite destination, like one moment?
I'm sorry, I just whispered to him he's eternal.
Or is it one moment, like ignition?
Okay, so
trend,
to
when
go
the
to go
Trinity
linear, do
arrives,
we
or
get to
what?
this point on the path, and then we go and take off, with fireworks? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying like, how will we know when I get there?
Oh, you're talking about the
Is
Trinity
is
part.
there a destination, like a party or a new Earth, or is there this ignition point where everything, all the memories and everything comes back, or like, I don't know. It feels like, I don't know.
So now you can see why I mentioned the other. The other
Yeah, I
one
was
that we
gonna say,
talked
let
about
me
was.
show you how many show
wow.
topics we have
Yeah.
here.
But no, what I'm talking, you just touched on, is it? And the other one that I mentioned tonight was walk the path from within out into new earth that is all around you now.
Yes, yeah, I don't think there's like any, first of all, because, well, BZ actually was talking earlier, there's 4 singularities right here.
Mm-hmm.
So we are one, but we are also singular. So there's going to be as many ways, as paths,
Right.
ignition points as there are of these singularities.
Yeah, and you brought up something really interesting in your question, David, that I want to ties back into so remember when we were talking before about, I said, well, it just is. So
right.
Sheila didn't do these cool things anymore. We're not bouncing the ball anymore. You notice that these things happen with the tilting or stuff in the shower, and then it seemed to stop. So you went from it just is and something different to it just is now. So when you're talking about, are you going to go, whoa, look at the bling, baby, I've got now, right? And this new thing. You might, in the sense that you're playing with all the toys that you, this is not accurate language, but did you remember that you had before you came in to David's mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're working out the new ones that you are choosing to materialize within you.
Okay.
So, and it will be different from all beings, but since now there's this thought, there's an absence of something.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in your own way or going through this, there will not be the absence of anything.
Right.
So will you notice that there's a lack of absence? Do you see what I'm saying? It's you are all, so there is nothing to notice that's not there. Right. When you have those pieces fall into place, it'll make sense, because trying to back out of it to describe to someone else, because someone asked me this about a year and a half ago, and I'll paraphrase, I don't remember the exact question, but well, I notice things that are different and changing. I can look at you and I notice things are different and changing with you, and I hear you describe different things and changing. So will I know, very similar to your question, will I notice it when this happens to me? Will I be able to kind of, take my shoes on and off, sort of a thing, kind of thing. I'm just trying to think of some metaphors that help here. And my response was, well, not in the way you're holding it, because it's either have and have not, shoes on, shoes off, right? I can leap tall buildings in a single bound, or I can't, kind of a thing, or I know that I can, because it simply is. I know that sounds like a really vague description, but it's it's the most accurate that I can give. So, I mean, there are certain things that you can do that are just innate to you that you do, and there's no big deal. You don't think about them. There's just no big deal. Someone points, oh man, that's really cool, David, how you can do that, or your sense of this, or, you're really skilled at that. Right. So I'm sure there's been something in your life, many of them, but that one that would pop into your mind. And for you, it's like, well, how do you do that? Or how did you get to do that? Or can you show me how to do that? And it takes a lot of work to kind of piece that stuff out of how to do it, because you just do it. Does that, are you finding any familiarity? So this is the same thing. And as you go through different things, you learn it's an odd question. On the one hand, you could see, well, yeah, that question makes perfect sense, but I can't answer that, or I have to work really hard to answer that question because I am this, and this is me now, and it's hard to remember when this wasn't me. I don't really care because I could, you know what I mean? Because I guess that propensity for the linear delineation of this or that, of separateness, or a dualistic before and after timeline isn't there.
Well, I guess will there be a point, or is there a point where we're all closer to the same page than we seem to be now, like in our understanding or awareness?
Yeah, because we're in that, one way to describe that is we're fully in the 2 world, traveling down to the 3 world split. And so, yeah, those energy frequencies are frequency neighborhoods, and people are going. So in that respect, those in the neighborhood are holding the similar ranges and frequencies. And so, yeah, they'll be on the same page. So the pages on the 2 worlds will look vastly different, but it will be
very obvious. Like there will be nobody on the planet, or nobody on our train, that will be able to not,
right,
on this train, and that you're on this train, or you're not on this train at all.
Right. Yeah, and you can notice it now.
Right.
It's
I see a lot of it, and I also
we were surrounded by people
that so it's just figuring out. It just seems it's frustrating, because it seems like, well, do we have to spend the rest of our life trying to educate people and myself about what actually happened in history, or what our actual history is, or whatever? Or does there at some point where some of it levels out, where or is that driven by the individual? I guess
it's driven by the individual, and it's all coming. That's not accurate. I was going to say it's all coming online now.
Questions, but
no, they're good. It's just trying to. If I could give you what's in here, and the pictures, and the video, and the packets of information, you'd go, "Oh yeah, well, why didn't you say that before?"
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. Like once it happens, it's kind of like, oh, duh. Well, that's so, it makes so much. Yeah. I understand that.
Because I can remember times of having, long conversations with someone who held the energy frequency that I do now, although when I'm remembering this, I did not hold this, right? And going, but and the wanting to argue, not so much with the person, but within myself, wanting to be attached to the way things are, all of those kinds of things, and thinking, and predominantly thinking, well, cool, I want to do that, or I want to work on that, or I want to clear that, or, so willing to absolutely participate in my thing, complete with the torn sweatshirt and the mud on the face and the whole 9 yards. And I remember certain pieces where there would have been a conversation, about it, and the piece just clicked. I couldn't tell you how or what or when or the moment, but I had a moment where I knew it was there. I was like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, right? And then that completely it was there for just a nanosecond. And then it completely disappeared because it simply was.
Right.
And one of the ways I would describe that is that's why it's an inside job. And no one can do it for you. Someone can share stories of like with the glasses. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, my eyes didn't work.
But when I have my own conversation with myself or what have you, it'll have to be my own spin on it.
Yes. Right. So the story can illustrate that, yes, it absolutely can happen, and in a very demonstrable way. So I went from, Coke bottle thick glasses to not.
Right.
It didn't take months. It didn't take this. It was take the, one day, 90 seconds or so, not much longer than that. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to wear glasses anymore. Put them back on and go back by what I'm doing, right? Mm-hmm. To, a week later, take your glasses off. And having a momentary, and this is talking about, we order the pizza or the cannoli and then we forget. So I'm busy here. I want to read my book.
Right.
I just ordered the not needing the glasses anymore. And we told you to take the glasses off and you're kibitzing. What is up with that? Right? No, except there's none of that from the large brand. So, okay, that's why I say, okay, move across from the East Coast to the West Coast, with 2 dogs and a cat to people you've never met and, what, $28 or something in your pocket. Okay. So that was as quick as it was. Mm-hmm. And I didn't check back, how's it going? Are you guys working on the, eyeballs or, because when there's that clean and clear place that you are, remember you asked that series of questions. So did you ask for it? Did you command it? Did you will it? Right? And I said, yes.
Right.
So when in that moment, and you could, if you chose for you, whether, on a linear cognitive knowingness or not, set it up for a week or a month, or 2 years or that kind of thing. So that's kind of how we move through it. And it's different for all beings. There is one right way. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Love.
For David, for Sheila, for Lisa, for Beezy, for Keegan, for Rose, for, all the other people that are around you. Yes. There's one right way. Yes. Is that the same as for all those people? No.
Makes sense.
Well, and that's what, and that does make it a little difficult if you're not trusting yourself, though. Let me just say, because I wanted Lisa and BZ to tell me how to do this. I wanted them to tell me how to do that. Anybody, tell me, and it wasn't working. And I mean, little bits and pieces. Say what?
And I even tried to tell her.
Yes, she did.
What I do for me.
But until, and we all, yes, there are bits and pieces that have certainly assisted. But what I've come to know now is that we all of us, every single one of these singularities will have a process that is uniquely your own.
Right. And do you said there were bits and pieces that helped, yes. And do you know why that was?
Well, I was seeking and I was looking for information and trying different things and asking myself.
You
and
took the piece and you fit it, and so.
Right. I did not just take anything you gave me and put it in wholesale.
No, you took you were fashioning your tool, it's the sculptor of the new Sheila expansion ascension Sheila tool, right? Okay.
Right.
And you took a bit or a piece from Lisa and kind of bent it, pretzeled it, and stuck it on here, and then something from BZ, or that's what I say oftentimes happens is that I can't tell you how many times in so far the journey I go, oh, that's it. Wow, that's great. People are like, what? Give me the piece. What's the piece? It's like, and I take the piece, whatever, just to use a euphemism, the piece, and it had stopped being whatever that other being's piece was almost instantaneously. The flash of insight from within me that came when I encountered that was my piece that so if I was a tool and die machine factory inside me, I had now, machined that to precision hone the tool in that. So me meeting me with that other being and the piece, that's how they all happen.
Right. Yes, because the moment it flashed for you, that tool became BZ shaped.
Right. And most, that's right. And most of them, if someone was to be sitting next to me and go, well, but that doesn't look anything, you just described, you're all excited about that. And what you're excited about doesn't look anything like what that other, but right. That was the piece, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Subject to one another. Mm-hmm. In that connection, in that meeting is a metamorphosis from an inside job that I can then, create with, or as I watch something, what is it? Am I seeing that it's beholding for me?
Yep.
Makes sense.
Well, that's why letting go of the linear of the way things are with the quotations
is a big tool.
Well, yes, it is a big tool. The part of the way things are or have been and will now be leaving is, that the whole, like you were talking earlier about education. We think that, and learning is not at all what we think it is. This
right.
whole memorization bullshit that we've got going on.
Yeah, and it's more, well, not only that, but it's more nuanced than that. And of course, see how everything is connected, because it goes into the false construct, which goes into the tinkering, which goes into things are not as it seems, because education, people think education is wonderful in this world. Education is, or that education is useful, or that education is this holy grail. I could give you one word: bullshit. Because none of it is what it is purported to be. In fact, it's complex, but a simple way to say it is, first of all, it's not at all what it seems. Second of all, it is designed to do the complete opposite of what you think. In a broad.
Well, for me, what I'm noticing in this moment of now, and why I brought it up at all, is that it is wholesale, over the top, showing us, or I should say, we've allowed it to show us or teach us that you can't possibly, it's, you know, that it took that inside job and put it out there, is what I'm saying.
On purpose.
I know. That's
because the inside job is terrifying. The inside job is the biggest, you know, smooth path or howitzer, you know, giving you two ends of the spectrum there. That, you know, if everybody got wise to the inside job, they wouldn't be banning guns, because they've been banning the inside job for a long time now. You just haven't noticed it because you think it's education and, you know, everything's cool.
Right. No, that's exactly correct. I guess that's why I went in that direction, because that's some of those things that are that you know.
And that goes back to this, you know, the conversation tonight is letting go of the way things are. Well, you know, got to get a good education. It's important. You know, I love my child, so I want them to get a good education. I want them to get ahead. I want them to go to the best schools. I want them to do all these kinds of things. Okay, so if you played with that, feel into it. Okay, well, what is that? Well, you know, how do you feel it? What's the want? You know, well, so they can have a better future than I did, so they can have, you know, or if they let go of all that because I love them. Well, if people were playing with letting go of the linear thing of the way things are, then they'd be saying, wow, I love them. Do not go to school. Do not do these things. You know, oh, you're fascinated by X, Y, or Z. Yes, let's go do that. And I'm fascinated by this, and it's different. So where can we play where I can be fascinated and you can be fascinated, and, you know, we're playing together. And again, since everything is all connected, we're not small. And we have unlimited capacities to do all these things. Yes, we can focus and we can play. We're really good at playing and focusing and narrowing down, because, hey, look, what this is magnificent. This mess, you know, is sublimely gorgeous. I mean, look at the complexity and the nuance and all of the shades and colors. We are good. Yeah. We really are. And when you can start to play with it, and are we good at being horrific? Yes. Are we good at being joyful? Yes. Are we good at all of the different things in between? Yes.
And now for something completely different.
Yeah.
That's why I just keep hearing Monty Python in my head, because that's where we're headed. Something completely different.
And this is another conversation, but that's where we are.
Well, that's why I said, and now for something completely different.
No, what I was saying that you're referring to, you just said that's where we're headed.
Oh, I gotcha. No, it is completely different. You're right. It feels completely different. So, but no, I stand by what I said, because I'm going somewhere different every time I open my eyes or get up or walk around. It's different. So I am continually heading in a different, you know, something completely different.
I feel like I'm exploring. I'm in a new world and I can do new things.
Yeah. That's what we're always doing. We're seeing that more and more.
Yeah, agreed. Wow, this has been an awfully good conversation.
Lots to think about.
Yeah. Thank you, David. That was very nice.
Yeah.
Questions. That was fabulous.
Well, as per usual, we will have all the usual things in all the usual places. So if you'd like to get in touch with any one of us, you can find how to get in touch with us in the show more section of this video. And I would love to hear how some of you are finding yourself letting go of some of the linear of the way things are. And then, that's in quotes. Would love to hear it by email, by comment, and the, underneath the video, however you'd like to do.
Yeah.
Did anybody else?
Yeah, I'd flip it around. I'd love to hear that. And also, if you want to go, but, and then what's the way things were or are in parentheses, put that in.
Yeah.
Because.
Yep.
In putting it there, in putting it, even if you never send the email, of course, that's helpful too. But in putting it there, you're actually taking it out for you to look at it.
Yeah. Agreed. Awesome. Well, did anybody else have anything you want to say? How about you?
I don't think you guys, I was just thinking about Heather and Randy, just send some love to them for the holidays, and it sucks that they're still where they are, but it brought us together, so good things are coming from it, and more good things to come. So
yeah,
thank you guys for hosting and for letting me ask questions. And
no, it was fun to have you with
always
us. So
fun
that
to
was
play.
awesome.
Keep coming. You're going to be around that.
You have to be in person.
You might get a new roommate.
We'd have to get another toilet for that to happen. Let me just say that right now. All right. Well, how about either one of you two ladies? Would you like to add anything to this envelope before we close? No? All right. Well, thanks everybody. Till next time.
Much love.